Let's talk about some sad news. April 28th, 2005, just 4 days after breaking his ankle during a match in TNA, Chris Candido passes away. He had surgery to repair it. He has a blood clot that forms when he's flying home, and unfortunately, it causes him to pass away. Chris wrestled as Skip in the WWF. We lost him way too soon. Any fun or interesting stories you can share with us about Chris besides the, if I wanted to hook you, you'd be hooked for Briscoe?
You know, I often times used to make fun of Chris from calling him Skippy because there was so much. Chris was such a talented, god damn. I mean, you talk about someone having it all. Chris had it all. And Chris could work. Chris could talk. And if he was six inches taller, would have been the world champion.
Yeah.
Chris also had the attitude of someone that was 8 feet tall and 300 pounds. Had a chip on his shoulder because he was a bit smaller than the rest of the guys. But if you got to know Chris, Chris was like a child in many ways. He just wanted to be a wrestler. He just wanted to go in the ring every night and have a match and take the audience on a ride. And that's what I loved about Chris Candido. He was just a pure fan with a pure love of the business. One of the funniest Candido stories was when he became the NWA World Champion. He was in a airport and he goes to the bathroom and he looks over and there's Lou Thesz. He had never met Lou Thesz before. This had to be in the 2000s, I guess, or no, maybe 90s. What had to be the 90s when Chris was NWA champion. This is when the NWA was basically the king of the indies.
Right.
And he was, oh my God, there's Lou Thesz. So to him, there's a walking, talking God in the flesh standing next to him at the urinal.
In 94, by the way.
94. And Chris introduces himself. Hello, Mr. Thesz. And he goes, I'm Chris Candido. This is so surreal. I'm the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. And to see you now and to meet you, this is such a huge honor. And Thesz says to him, he says, well, kid, he goes, I'll give you some advice. Just always make sure that you get your correct percentage on the belt. Now, what's comical about that is back in the day, Thesz, was drawing houses and the champion drew and the champion got 10% of the gate. And, Lou would always go out and try and count the house and try to figure out what his percentage should be. Well, now with times had changed. Times had changed greatly in that the world champion didn't get 10% of the gate anymore, and then the NWA didn't get their percentage and all the other bullshit that went along with it. And Chris just was so tickled at the fact that Lou, in many ways, was so out of touch that he still thought that the NWA championship meant that Chris got 10% of the gate. And then Chris started doing the ciphering and figuring. He goes, fuck, I'd lose money if all I got was 10% of the fucking gate. So it was always that innocence and just a pure love of the business that Chris had, and to lose him so young for a freak accident, which is really what it was, and something going horribly wrong. I think that the business lost a hell of a talent that day, because Chris could have taught, Chris could have continued on, and as the business changed and morphed over the years, I firmly believe that Candido could have been one of those that could have excelled above and beyond what he did, because he had that kind of heart and that kind of talent.
It's worth mentioning, and I feel weird even saying this, but how fucking awesome would he be as a trainer in NXT?
He'd be tremendous. He really would. And because Chris was very fundamentally sound, he loved the fundamentals and he loved the simplicity of wrestling. And that's what he wanted to do. And he did it better than anybody. So you take all of those things and it's, he would have been a great trainer. He would have been an excellent trainer. And I think he would have been a bigger star too.
Let's talk about one of the biggest stars of all, Hulk Hogan. He's the centerpiece of the mainstream advertising for this Backlash pay-per-view, at least according to Wade Keller. He says WWE purchased a full-page ad in USA Today promoting Backlash featuring a picture of Hulk Hogan. WWE's marketing strategy was to feature Hogan and Shawn Michaels as the top draw amongst the casual fans, while pushing Triple H challenging Batista as the top match when marketing directly to their fan base watching the TV shows. Before we keep going, I got to tell you, I love that strategy. I know it's going to be criticized by some, but the idea is everybody knows who Hulk Hogan is. Not everybody, but a lot of people know who Shawn Michaels is. So we should definitely feature them to the mainstream. And then when they tune in, and hopefully they do, they'll see how great Batista and John Cena and this new crop of stars are. But you've got to have somebody sort of out front to attract a familiar name, to attract that old school fan, and then maybe hope that they give you another shot with these new guys, right?
Always has been the case. Get the eyeballs in there, and when they're in there to watch something else, show them what you're really selling. And get them hooked. Get them hooked on the new breed and get them hooked on the new talent. The elder statesmen may bring them in, but the young ones will bring them back.
If you guys were running a bar, then you would, back when bars were a thing, people would run promotions where it's like, oh, it's penny beer night. Well, they're not making any profit when they sell you beer for a penny. They hope that you'll come by and try the beer for a penny, and hey, then maybe you'll get hungry and you'll eat some other food. And then you'll say, you know what, now it's time for some shots. And hopefully you have a good enough time that you'll come back another day when it's not penny beer. And in real life, that's called a loss leader. That's sort of what you're using Hulk Hogan here for at the time, right?
Bring them in, baby. Bring them in and get that penny. I don't think that they ever really, with penny beer, it was either usually like fucking Lone Star or Pearl or some kind of just water piss that was some off-brand beer too.
It's always draft, and it's in a tiny cup. And, the idea is you'll get frustrated with the tiny cups and you'll order a mixed drink or a cocktail or a shot, but maybe you'll have enough of this penny beer. You'll also gorge yourself on some shitty nachos or whatever. But it was a business strategy to say, hey, look what we've got. And you're not really making money on that. And that's not really your primary product, but it's one that they're familiar with. And when they come in, hey, let's sell them some other stuff.
Yeah. But in Texas, it was quarter pitchers because everything's bigger in Texas.
Well, not everything.
Well,